get out of the car, and they walk up to the door, and they sat me down at the table, and they said Haley's name. And then they said suspicious activity. So I was like, I just kept staring at him, and it wasn't processing. And I said, what do you mean? And then they told me.
On March 8th, 2018, at an apartment on Oak Street in Binghamton, New York, Hallie Anderson was asphyxiated, possibly from manual neck compression or strangulation involving the necklace she had on.
I felt angry that I didn't push for him to be arrested for that tire slashing, and that I didn't, raise more red flags for Haley with that.
Hallie Anderson was a well-loved nursing student, known for her bright personality and caring nature. Though she had few close friends, she did have one strong friendship with fellow student Orlando Tercero. Orlando Tercero was a 22-year-old nursing student at Binghamton University. He held both Nicaraguan and American citizenship, with his full name being Orlando Enrique Tercero Moreno. Their relationship seemed to be more than just friends, and some of Orlando's friends even said that he was deeply in love with her. They spent a lot of time together, often hanging out at each other's apartments. However, Orlando's feelings for Hallie started to grow into an unhealthy obsession. This caused concern amongst her friends and family, but Hallie trusted him completely, as they had spent so much time together and believed they knew each other well. On the night of March 8th, Hallie Anderson went out with friends and later went to Orlando Tercero's apartment. It seemed like a normal evening, full of fun and laughter. But everything changed the next morning. On March 9th, Orlando's sister received a troubling message from him and called 911.
Friday, she was found dead in this home near Binghamton University.
Police checked his apartment but didn't find anyone there and left. At first, Hallie's roommate didn't worry when she didn't come home, thinking she might be sleeping in. But as the hours passed with no contact, concern grew.
She didn't answer. I figured she was still asleep. She loves sleeping.
Panic set in the next day when Hallie missed an important poetry reading. Everyone started searching for her. Her friends traced Hallie's phone, and it led them to Orlando's apartment. When they arrived, the door was locked from the outside. Desperate, they broke in through a window, and what they discovered was horrifying. Hallie's lifeless body was found in Orlando's bed, strangled with severe bruising on her neck and arms. They immediately called 911, which prompted police to return to the apartment for a second time. The most concerning detail was that Orlando was missing. Did he have something to do with Hallie's death? But why? He was so deeply in love with her, so how could he possibly harm her? As investigators searched for answers, they turned to security cameras and uncovered chilling footage. The cameras showed both Hallie Anderson and Orlando Tercero entering his apartment early on March 8th. After spending nearly 7 hours at his apartment with Hallie, Orlando was seen leaving several times. Security footage showed him clearing the driveway of trash and leaving alone. Police later used a receipt from his apartment to trace his steps to a nearby pharmacy, where he bought ZZZ-Quil and melatonin, both sleeping aids. He then returned to his apartment, and the cameras didn't capture him again for another 7 hours. Hours later, only Orlando was seen leaving alone. This discovery raised more questions and deepened the mystery surrounding what truly happened that night. After Hallie's death, it was discovered that Orlando had attempted suicide but failed.
You can see some blood on the floor. You can see a tie hanging from a doorway.
He then boarded a plane to Nicaragua, leaving behind a note written in Spanish, apologizing for his actions. The note said, "I'm sorry about this. I never felt I could be capable of doing this." While it appeared to be a confession, it wasn't clear what he was admitting to. His sudden departure to Nicaragua while injured made things much more difficult for U.S. authorities.
With his head bandaged, possibly from that alleged suicide attempt, Orlando boarded a plane and headed home to Nicaragua.
The investigation began with some serious concerns about Orlando. He had left a note with unclear wording and fled the country. Police started questioning Orlando's friends, as well as Hallie's friends and family, to understand the relationship between the two. Many said they had noticed strange behavior from Orlando towards Hallie. They shared that Orlando seemed too involved with her, raising suspicions about his role and what had happened. These observations added to the growing concern about Orlando's possible involvement in the tragic incident. As Hallie's friends remember, Orlando's obsession with her became more obvious over time. He would show up at her home without being invited, lingering outside and demanding her attention.
bickering. Sometimes they weren't. Other times they would laugh hysterically, and I could hear from my room when she would stay over. And other times they kept their distances and wouldn't see each other.
Even though Hallie tried to set boundaries, Orlando's behavior became more unstable. Things escalated after Hallie got back together with Kevin.
He like, Orlando, you need to leave. You can't just show up at our house.
Why do you think he did that?
Because he was jealous. He just didn't want to see someone else over there.
You think Orlando was obsessed with Haley?
Yeah.
The situation grew even more troubling when one of Hallie's friends revealed a Snapchat story where Orlando was seen near Hallie's car.
Slashed every single one.
On September 16, 2017, Orlando was suspected of slashing her car tires, causing $600 in damage, and it was confirmed by his boyfriend Kevin.
Found her tires slashed. Wake up, she walks me out of the door, and this time when I was walking past her car, I noticed that something looked off as be Orlando.
Knowing about this, Hallie chose not to press charges. She allowed Orlando to stay in her life.
Make a police report so that she wouldn't press charges because it was over $600 in damage and it would have been considered a felony and he would have been kicked out of the nursing school.
Her friends and family were worried about his behavior when they were in a relationship, but Hallie, being compassionate and perhaps too trusting, refused to believe that someone she once cared for could hurt her. Just a day earlier, on September 15th, Hallie Anderson attended a party at Orlando Tercero's place. During the party, Orlando confronted her about her new relationship with a mutual friend. The situation quickly escalated, and Orlando yelled at Hallie. After the argument, he tried to calm things down by offering her a drink, but tensions remained high. It seemed that Orlando may have already been planning to lure Hallie back to his apartment with the intent to harm her. As investigators pieced together the events, the police released a statement. The victim and the male student had a prior domestic/romantic relationship. The investigation determined that the person of interest had left the United States on an international flight before Hallie Anderson's body was discovered. Orlando, holding dual citizenship, had fled to Nicaragua, a country without an extradition treaty with the U.S., leaving Hallie's loved ones feared that justice might never be served. However, back in Broome County, investigators were determined to pursue justice. Their efforts reached across international borders, putting pressure on Nicaraguan authorities to apprehend Orlando and bring him to justice. The legal process that followed Hallie's death was filled with challenges. The U.S. issued a warrant for Orlando's arrest, but it was up to Nicaragua to decide if he would stand trial for her murder. As days turned into months, Hallie's friends and family felt deep pain and uncertainty, unsure if they would ever see justice for the woman who had brought so much happiness to their lives. Despite these challenges, there was a glimmer of hope. Nicaraguan authorities eventually arrested Orlando Tercero and charged him with femicide, a term used in some Latin American countries for the murder of women.
They showed Orlando Tercero. We knew he was there. So, my thought was, what do I do now? Where do we go from here?
The U.S. could not prosecute him. Orlando faced trial in Nicaragua. He was ultimately convicted and sentenced to 30 years in prison, bringing some sense of justice for Hallie's loved ones. The main issue in this case is Orlando's dual citizenship. Due to Nicaragua's complicated extradition laws, the country isn't required to hand over its residents, even for serious crimes like murder. This situation has made it harder for American authorities and Hallie's grieving family to seek justice. Steve Cornwell, the district attorney for Broome County, strongly pushed for Orlando's extradition to the United States to face a second-degree murder charge.
When I learned he was in Nicaragua before we could get to him, the first thing I thought was, no way, he got away with murder.
Hallie's family believed Orlando should be tried in New York, where the crime occurred. However, despite their efforts, the process took over a year, and Nicaraguan authorities didn't give a clear answer. In September of 2019, the U.S. Department of Justice delivered a mixed message. Nicaragua would not extradite Orlando, but they were willing to prosecute him in their own legal system. This unexpected turn meant that instead of facing murder charges, Orlando would be tried in Nicaragua for femicide. This term specifically refers to the killing of a woman by someone with whom she had a relationship. The trial began in October 2019 and took place under unusual conditions. Since it was in Nicaragua, U.S. authorities, including witnesses and prosecutors, had to join the proceedings through video calls from Broome County. A judge, rather than a jury, would decide Orlando's fate. The first witness was Hallie's mother, Karen. With tears and deep sorrow, Karen described how Orlando had stalked her daughter.
Did you know after your daughter tell you if she ever had any problem in her?
Stopped texting her and following her and driving by her house.
Seeing Orlando on the screen showing little remorse made Karen's grief even worse. Orlando's defense team argued that he acted out of temporary insanity due to heavy drinking. They claimed he had no memory of the incident and woke up after a night of drinking to find Hallie dead. However, this explanation did not persuade the prosecution or the court. After hearing testimony from both sides, the Nicaraguan judge took only 90 minutes to reach a decision. The judge strongly condemned violence against women, stating that Orlando had killed Hallie because he could not accept her independence. Then, the verdict was announced. Orlando was found guilty of femicide. Despite the conviction, Orlando's defense team quickly appealed the case. They continued to argue that Orlando was briefly insane and drunk when the crime occurred. His lawyer wanted to present new psychiatric evaluations to show that Orlando's mental health state during the crime should lead to a lighter sentence or even freedom. So this time, Karen spoke directly to Orlando.
I hope that you get the highest amount of years behind bars because you deserve even more than that.
In February 2020, Orlando returned to the courtroom in Nicaragua for his appeal. His defense lawyer claimed that Orlando had been wrongly charged with femicide, a crime specific to Nicaragua, and requested a new psychiatric evaluation. However, the court rejected these arguments, and the original verdict remained. Currently, Orlando is serving his 30-year sentence in Nicaragua, but his defense team has promised to keep fighting for his release. They insist that Orlando was not in his right mind at the time of the murder and believe that further legal actions could change the outcome. Hallie's family is doubtful about these efforts. While they know the situation is not perfect, they feel that the 30-year sentence provides some justice for the life that was taken so senselessly.
No double jeopardy, so if for some reason he was released, the entire case can be tried here on behalf of the family.
If you want to hear more crime stories, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get notifications when we upload a new video.